Welcome to Property Line, where you can list, search, and market to a national database of commercial real estate professionals all in one place. Last time we went over how to sign up and create your account. We talked about MyPL Desktop and your account settings. Today we're going over List and how to get your listings onto Property Line. We'll also cover how to manage your listings. Now let's get started. Go ahead and click on the List tab. This takes us to the My Listings page. Now if we had listings already, they would appear here, but since we don't, let's go ahead and add a sale listing. Fields starting with an asterisk are required. We'll start by selecting some appropriate categories for the listing, and as you can see, when I select the category, subcategories appear below. Now while subcategories are not required, the more information you enter about the property, the more useful it will be to other users, and the easier to find. We should also select the business type. Now there's a long list to choose from, everything from construction to manufacturing, and again it helps to be specific, but just for the purposes of this video, let's go ahead and select miscellaneous. Next we have the option to add additional agents to the listing. A list of agents will appear depending on the company you belong to. These agents will appear in the agents section of the listing summary. We can add 2 additional agents, including yourself. You can also allow these agents to edit the listing. Now we need to add a property name, a street address, a city, a state, and select a zip code. We also have the option to add cross streets, townships, and parcel numbers. These will all help with listing searchability. Again, the more information you put into a listing, the more data will be shared in searches. And ultimately, that's what you want: maximum search hits. We'll also want to add a general description of the area. Nothing too fancy, just a small bit of text to let potential buyers know of any defining characteristics or any other information not already mentioned that might not fit anywhere else. Now we move on to the general information section. First we have land size, which we can express as either square feet or acres. We'll say 120,000 square feet for this hypothetical listing. Then the square feet of the building itself, which we'll set at 75,000. We also have number of buildings, we'll use 1. Number of units, also 1. Number of stories, 2 should do. Whether or not the building or buildings are freestanding, we'll say yes to it. There's also a slot here for setting what the area is zoned as, and we won't set that right now. We can also add a list of features to the property. We'll add covered parking as an example. Here we have 2 sections for a property description. Be sure to add as many keywords as you can, as they are also searchable. The first section is information that you would like your client to view. It doesn't have the listing broker's information or any special broker instructions in it. The second section is for broker's eyes only. This is where all the pertinent information a searching agent needs, such as contact information, do not disturb the tenants, and other things only brokers would need to know. Next we'll select if the building is Class A, B, or C. We can also designate the property use as any, business for sale, investment, or vacant/owner. Now this building is already built, so we'll go ahead and indicate that here. And as you can see, there are a lot of other options to input. Filling out as much as you can will help this listing show up in the search results for people looking for your type of property. Now we'll move on to the financial section. For our property, we'll leave the list price blank. As you can see, co-op commission and commission comments are the only required fields in this section. However, there is one caveat. Brokers searching by a price range is a fairly common occurrence, so brokers who conduct a search by price only will not see your listing in their results. Property Line wants you to have the freedom to choose, while at the same time giving you all the facts. In the cash flow section, we have inputs for yearly cash flow, effective gross, operating income, etc. Under debt information, interest rate, amortization, and more. Again, filling in as much information as you can will make your listings much more accessible. You can also list the property's current tenants, how much space they occupy, and their lease expiration. In addition, you can display information for each individual unit, such as the monthly rent. Now we'll go ahead and click Submit. As we can see, our listing has been added and is now searchable in the PL database. We are now at the Manage Listings page. Here's a brief description of our newly created listing. On this page, you can do everything you can do to a listing. Preview it, edit it, email it, add attachments, and the like. To the right, we see your control panel. These are shortcut links to the listing actions, but for now, let's search for the listing that we just created. Click the Search tab at the top of the page. If you recall, it was a sale listing that we created, as opposed to a lease. We'll start by searching by location. Now when we cover search in more detail in an upcoming video, you'll see all the different ways in which you can search for a listing. But for now, click Search. And there we see the listing, Sale Property 1. Now when we click on that listing, we're taken to a Listing Reports page, which shows more detailed information. Let's click on the List tab at the top of the page. Now that we have a listing, it shows it instead of the option to create one. Under Options, click on Manage Listing. Now we'll click on Mark Current. This tells Property Line that the listing and its information is up to date. Oftentimes you will want to change or update a listing status. To do that, click on Change Status in the control panel on the right side of the screen. A pop-up dialog box will appear. You can change its status to pending, sold, or even withdraw the listing. You also have the option to make a listing unsearchable. This will prevent the listing from appearing in search results. Now we'll go back and try searching for this listing again. We'll have all the appropriate criteria set properly, but unlike the first time, you'll see that this time the listing doesn't show. We'll go back one last time under Manage Listing, then under Change Status, and change its status to Sold. We'll also change this back to being searchable. It will ask you for the date that it's sold and for its sell price. You'll notice the price is required. You won't be able to continue if you leave this blank. We'll just cancel out of this for now. Now we'll create a lease listing, which is basically the same thing as creating a sale listing, except that after you create the lease, you must then create the spaces inside that lease property. We'll skip through the actual creation of the lease listing, since it is the same as making a sale listing, except that you choose lease instead of sale. The part that differs comes after that, creating the spaces, which we'll jump right to. So we've added our lease listing, and here we have our Add New Space page. In the interest of time, we'll leave a lot of these fields blank. We will fill out Building 101, say 8,500 square feet. For space description, we'll simply add office space. Underneath that, we'll set sublease to yes, and it will have 15 parking spaces. These fields under it we'll leave blank for right now, but we'll change broadband and sprinklers to yes. Now that should be enough information for this space, so we'll submit this page, and our lease space was added successfully. We can manage our spaces from this page. We can add additional spaces if we like, but we've added one, which is all we need for the listing to show up. So now we can search for this listing and find it live in the database. But before we do that, let's look at the lease space status. Just like for a sale property, we can set the status of spaces inside of a lease property. Here we'll choose a current status, and we'll set it to be searchable so that we and others can find it. Now we'll click on Search so we can see our listing appear. We'll choose to search Lease Only. We'll search for office properties in Los Angeles, and we'll leave the other fields blank. We'll submit the form by hitting Search, and there we have it, Lease Listing 1. Just to illustrate, back on the List tab, we'll re-enter Manage Listing, scroll down to Manage Lease Spaces, and choose to delete this space. As we mentioned before, because the lease property consists of spaces, without available spaces, there's nothing to search for. So when we try to search again for the same property, this listing will not show up in the search results, as you can see here. In this demo, we've covered creating a sale and a lease listing, how to manage these listings, and we touched briefly on searching PL's database for these listings. In our next demo, we'll cover search in more detail. Thanks for joining us.